Why don't you take a seat? We have something to talk about. Now, I know most people follow me on the internet because of my icy cold demeanor and my high level gameplay ability. I don't like to get mad at you, but sometimes I have to, or at least some of you. And I am gosh darn furious right now. So recently I put out the second Cruelest video game, and I thought the video was a special video. Like, I put a lot of work into it, and I wanted to give it that little finishing cherry on top kind of thing. And so I hired Scutch, who's an illustrator, to do a thumbnail. I wanted him to do like a unique painting of needles, and they absolutely fucking killed it. I love this thumbnail. I think it looks so good, and I'm so delighted with it. Scutch is one of my favorite people to work with because not only are they super talented, but they're also just a very cool and nice person. They're super receptive to feedback. They always just want to make like the best piece they can, and I think it's part of what makes working with them such a joy. And I would also say, if you ever need someone to do a customized illustration for your video, Scutch is an amazing person to work with. The problem is that when I work with Scutch or work with artists like Scutch, I inevitably get a bunch of people saying you used AI artwork in your thumbnail. Now, I'm not even going to talk about my stance on generative AI, because if you've been on this channel for any amount of time, you will be very familiar with that. And this is something I've seen all over the internet, not just with my stuff or not even just the artists I work with, but it feels like so rarely now that an artist can post like a, highly rendered piece without it immediately turning into like this witch trial where people are like, did you use AI? I noticed that this little detail isn't, and people are like zooming in on it and trying to figure out like, but why is this bit like this? Like, why is that? And it's like, that's not how AI works. And I've gotten messages from artists talking about what a bummer this is to deal with, and I can understand that. Because, like, if you're an artist and you've reached any degree of, like, competency, sure, you have to have talent, but on top of that, like, the years and years of work that goes into refining that, and the fact that, like, very few artists ends up in positions where, like, their gifts are properly respected. You go through all that, and then you make a piece that you vibe with, that you feel good about, that you feel is like the, culmination of everything you've done, and then you put it online, and some people are like, I believe this could be the invention of artificial intelligence, when you literally just spent fucking 20 hours in the Photoshop mines just doing this over and over and over. And it really fucking just bums me out. I myself am a failed illustrator. I used to do illustration before I ever did YouTube stuff, and I really loved it, but I was never that good at it. And so to me, people who could actually draw, people who could, create brilliant artwork consistently, that to me was and still is like a kind of superpower. I have so much respect for illustrators and artists and anyone who goes through that grind. And I would say pre-AI, artists were already kind of given a raw deal in terms of pay, in terms of authorship of their work, in terms of ownership of their work, and profiting from that work. Already kind of a bum deal. The only reason a lot of artists get into art is because they love it. But now we have this fucking extra condition they have to go through, which is being accused of AI the entire time. I saw this, with the Fear and Hunger thumbnail, and I also saw it with the recent stream waiting screen I commissioned. And this was such a bummer as well, because like, this artist, they poured their heart and soul into this animation, and I mean, like, just fucking look at it. It's gorgeous, it's beautiful, and like, this is someone, I've seen their work in progress, I've seen their sketches, I've seen every tiny piece of this come together. And then, like, a lot of people were really hype when we showed it on stream, but then there was like one person in the chat being like, I'm not sure those skateboard wheels look quite right. And it's like, okay, maybe, I don't know, maybe the artist just like isn't 100% sure what way that works, but it still looks good, and it's just such a fucking bummer. And so, like, the question then has to become, why do people feel a need to do this? Like, why do people throw around accusations like this and think it's cool? And I think it's a few things. Number one, I think in general, people don't understand how generative AI works and specifically what it can do. So I think a lot of people, when like generative AI was starting, it was working in a very kind of watery color painterly style. It would kind of make everything quite realistic, but quite kind of smudgy, and there would be loads of detail everywhere. And I still think a lot of people now think that that's what generative art looks like, when in actuality, that was just the stuff that it could replicate the most easily, and so it did. But now, like, generative AI can do all kinds of shit, and it can often be really, really hard to tell the difference between generative art and not generative art. And, like, don't get me wrong, most of the slop out there, it's very, very apparent. You get fucking shiny anime ladies with the most ridiculous titties you could imagine, and they all have, like, this same, I'm gonna say, steam hentai look to them. But in a lot of other cases, it's harder to tell. And like, that's one of the frustrating things about generative AI. We all like to think that we can tell the difference, but in actuality, it's much harder. Someone saw my desktop recently and they messaged me being like, I think that desktop art is AI. And then I looked it up and I measured it and I put it through, like, you know, the detection software, and it turns out it actually was. And I fucking despise generative AI on a core fundamental principle level, but even I can't tell the difference sometimes. And if I can't tell the difference, I know other people can't tell the difference. So like, if you look at a piece of artwork and think it looks like detailed or think it looks super rendered, that's not a good metric for telling if something is AI anymore. Maybe it used to be, but it sure as shit ain't now. The second part of it is, I think, and this is a big part of why comment sections just tend to be such a nightmare in general, I think people just want something to say, and if you don't understand art and you don't know how to talk about it, or you're not used to talking about it, I think one thing you can say to give yourself an air of authority, or like that you know anything, is to be like, but is this AI? And immediately it becomes this attention grabbing thing. And so, like, it's not adding to the discussion, it's not helping anything, it's just all of a sudden, like, casting this assuasion on the situation. You are basically the person in a social group who's like, oh, you guys are so weird, what is happening right now? So none of this isn't to say that, like, if someone is using generative AI, that, like, it doesn't deserve to be called out, especially if they're pretending they're not, but I do think if you think someone is using generative AI, you should be doing your due diligence to make sure that it is actually generative and not just some poor artist working their ass off and creating something detailed. And like, while I don't think that the actual people who use generative AI are ever going to listen to anything like this, I would say to people who do use generative AI, the very, very least you can do is label the images you post as AI, because otherwise the water is just getting muddied for everyone and absolutely no one benefits. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this because genuinely my favorite part of this job is getting to work with ultra talented artists on Eyepatch Wolves, on the merch, on a yet unnamed project that will be releasing sometime in the next year. I am in awe of artists, and the fact that I get to work with so many and pay them well, that is so important to me. And as is making sure that they have a good experience working with me and knowing that they're immediately not going to get accused of using AI. So I just wanted to set the record straight on this, because I would never consciously use AI in anything, because I believe in artists and I believe in paying them well, rewarding them, and respecting their work. And so yeah, I know a lot of people watching this already know this stuff, but I also know that some won't. So yeah, protect artists, don't throw around accusations unless you have actual proof about it, and yeah, maybe let's all just try and be cool with each other. Okay, till next time.